Welcome to Back on the Broomstick,
a modern witch's spoken word grimoire,
where two witchy friends from way back are reconnecting to their pagan roots after a long period of mundanity.
We're rewalking the path of the wise and trying out all the latest spells, rituals, and magical theory in today's witchcraft and pagan practices.
So grab your wand and your incense,
your cauldron and your crystals,
and join us
as we get
Back on the Broomstick.
Hi, and welcome to Back on the Broomstick. I'm Layla, bringing you a Spring Equinox episode.
And I'm Chelle, bringing out the old Book of Shadows for this episode.
Oh, I love it when you bring out the Book of Shadows. I know you've got all sorts of old rituals and spells and recipes in there.
I'm actually going to post a picture of this because this thing is about ready to fall apart and people need to see this.
Nothing like a good old Book of Shadows with the binding half fallen off.
Hey, that just means it's loved, well loved. But tonight we're actually going to crack it open to the Ostara section. We're going to talk about some folklore tonight. We're going to do a two-part Ostara episode. So buckle in because we've got some good info for you.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about the holiday of the Spring Equinox that's coming up March 19th of this year, when day and night are equal.
You know, I kind of love this because not only are day and night equal, I love the autumn equinox as well because, you know, who doesn't love fall and pumpkin everything? But this equinox is different because you know that you're on the downhill to summer.
Oh, yeah.
The days get longer. Who doesn't love a sunset at 9 p.m.?
Yeah.
Come on now. So this is like the beginning of the glory time of the year for me.
Imbolc itself is more the first glimmerings of spring. For me, Imbolc is the very beginning of spring. So the equinox doesn't necessarily mark beginning of spring for me, even though it's called like the first day of spring here in the Northern Hemisphere. But it's more to me when spring is really sprung. It really has started. You can tell that the first shoots are up, the animals are out, there's more birds, and there's more sunshine.
You know, it's the baby bunnies. The minute you see them baby bunnies, you know spring has sprung.
You know, one of the first interesting folklore bits I'm going to tell you has to do with hares. You ever heard the saying, as mad as a March hare?
Yes, I have, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, weird saying, but apparently it goes back to the fact that March is when the hares are in mating season. So they're all horny and twitter-pated and hopping around. And I guess they act not as shy and careful as they normally do. They're all jumping around in the grass wanting to catch the eye of the other cute hares in the neighborhood.
Who's actually in their right mind during the breeding cycle? Come on.
The breeding cycle?
I didn't know a nice tactful way to say that. Humping like rabbits. This is humping like rabbit season, folks.
Right. Well, from one extreme to the other, Chelle.
Exactly.
And this is probably why people want us to do an episode on sex magic. Maybe closer to Beltane.
Right? But this is also kind of the, you know, we've talked about planting the seeds, and these are those sprouts. These are that first sign that all of your efforts are coming to fruition. You know, they may not have totally come to fruition, but like you can see it happening now. And the best part about this time of year, snow crocuses. Love them.
Daffodils, all the first spring flowers start to come out. And the equinox was celebrated in a lot of different cultures because it is kind of noticeable. You know, the day and night are equal. It's a great celestial event. Things are starting to wake up. It's the astrological new year. We start all over with the signs in the sign of Aries. So Aries season is really nice. Lots of fresh energy. Here's a good one, Chelle. We used to talk a lot about how we wanted to go see Chichen Itza. Do you remember that?
Right. Yep.
On the spring equinox at Chichen Itza, there is a temple. It's called the Cuchulain. And on this temple, there are 365 steps, just like the days of the year.
Right.
And on the equinox, the sun hits those steps in just the right way to make a shadow serpent. There's like a stone serpent head at the bottom of the temple. And the shadows of the steps make it look like it's a shadow serpent that's going up the temple, only on the equinox.
Interesting.
Right? That's pretty cool.
We still need to get to Chichen Itza.
Right? Exactly. So it was a very important date for people. It wasn't necessarily celebrated throughout the whole world.
So I decided tonight, because, you know, what fun is this always every time? I'm cracking open the old BOS, the old Book of Shadows. We're talking some 30-year-old ramblings of mine, okay? But I did want to touch on some things in here because when you do a book of shadows, a lot of it's just, I don't want to say note taking, but I ain't writing a novel here. And first of all, pro tip, don't ever do your book of shadows in pencil. You'll regret it in 30 years. But I actually have something interesting. This is the time when winter gives way to spring. Ice melts, rivers run full, leaves begin to bud, and grass turns green. We also have in here, this is why we shouldn't write in pencil, it's getting hard to read. Eggs. I wanted to bring up eggs because I did a little thing in here that eggs are a big symbol because it is that, I don't want to say in utero, is that a good way to say it? It's kind of this that life is growing, but it hasn't quite.
Like it's waiting, like it's at that expectant stage.
Right. I kind of look at Beltane as like the popping out. And with the eggs, and this is what I used to do with my kids, we would put in like little things that were like, I don't want to say trinkets, stones, rocks, leaves, little stick figures. And that was just kind of a honoring the things that are coming out, the things that are becoming new, the things that are sprouting. I mean, we loved the candy. Don't get me wrong. I'm a candy fanatic. Kids love candy. We'd fight over the Easter candy. But I kind of wanted to make sure that they knew that this was kind of almost like the beginning, like the fresh start, the starting over. I mean, we all know January 1st, that's the new year. But doesn't the new year really start when the sun is out longer than 4 p.m.?
Some cultures celebrated the spring equinox as the new year because, just like you said, you're coming out of winter and it's spring cleaning time and fresh starts.
But finding the little plastic eggs with like little trinkety type things in it was more about kind of the hatching of things, hatching of, I can't say ideas. I mean, they were kids for Christ's sakes. I mean, you can only get them to grasp so many concepts, but like the hatching of things and things starting over and newness. Ostara reminds me of newness.
Do you know where the eggs came from? The idea of the eggs and the bunny?
If you ask me what came first, the chicken or the egg, I'm a swatch you. No, I don't.
No, I'm asking you what came first, the bunny or the eggs?
The eggs.
Ostara was mostly a Germanic tradition. This isn't like a Celtic tradition. It wasn't celebrated necessarily in that area. It's more Teutonic. But it started in Germanic folklore. And a lot of that, like a lot of things at the time, were word of mouth, right? So not a lot was written down until, funnily enough, the Grimm brothers wrote down the story of Ostara and the hare. And the legend goes that Ostara was a goddess. She's the goddess of the dawn, of the east, of transformation, of new beginnings, fertility, and spring. So she was out walking one winter day and she found a bird that had fallen into the snow and was freezing to death. And so in order to save it, she transformed it into a hare. It was still able to lay eggs. And because of its magical transformation, those eggs were beautiful and stunning and gorgeously designed. And so every spring, the magical transformed hare would lay eggs, and the good children of the German towns would get eggs on the equinox.
Where did the candy come into play? That's what I want to know.
I imagine it came into play, much like you said, kids like candy. I think kids from time immemorial have always liked treats. So the idea was that on the equinox, if you were good, you would get candy or you would get colored eggs from the spring hare. Now, there's another story that doesn't paint the goddess Ostara in quite the same light.
Do tell.
And this one says that there was a fantastic bird, gorgeous in every way, and it laid the most intricate, beautiful, delicately designed eggs that anyone had ever seen. And because it was so bold and show-offy, the goddess Ostara was upset with it. And so to punish it, she turned it into a hare. Then she felt bad because it was so sad afterwards, so she allowed it to continue to lay eggs. So very weird story, but there you have it.
Now, I just found in Ye Old Book of Shadows an Ostara chant we used back in the day.
Oh, nice. What is it?
It's only 4 lines. I don't remember the tune. And if you think I'm going to sing it, y'all crazy. But we wrote somehow for an Ostara ritual chant, The fire within, the passion without. Bast, she is laughing. Flames dance about. Where the hell did we come up with that?
I have no idea.
But I like it. In retrospect, I love it, actually. Short, sweet, to the point.
Why did we pick Bast?
I don't know, but funny story. I laughed, and the reason I wanted to point that out and read it to you, I've been seeing a lot of stuff on Bast on all the socials recently. I am not terribly deep into Egyptian lore, so I was wondering if maybe this was like her time. I have seen a lot about her on socials lately, and we happened to write that in reference to an Ostara ritual. I don't know what our mindset was, but it ain't too shabby.
Not too bad. I'm just trying to figure out, I guess, why we would pick Bast and fire. Do you know what the elements are for the equinox? It doesn't seem very Ostara-like.
I know. The spring equinox and Ostara are actually associated with air. The reason being is because it was associated with fairies and butterflies, as well as obviously rabbits and eggs, and spring flowers. So probably because the whole fairy butterfly thing, I
Oh,
don't
it's
know.
an air festival. What the heck were we thinking? I don't even remember that chant. Like, what were we thinking?
I don't know. It's written down as 1999.
And that was part of our Ostara? That was our Ostara chant?
Yeah. Well, okay. I have an idea. I got an
Okay.
idea.
Okay.
So Ostara, balance, renewal, new beginnings, new possibilities. Maybe we were thinking burning away the past, burning away the old to start the new, the whole phoenix thing, rise from the, I
Oh.
don't know what the hell we were thinking. I'm grasping.
Is there anything else about the ritual or about the
No,
chant there?
it literally in my book of shadows, it says Ostara ritual chant, 1999.
All
No
right.
ritual, because you know how sometimes I would actually write down the rituals word for word. No ritual
Yeah,
with it.
no ritual. Just a weird fire bast chant that we're not sure why.
Maybe
Okay.
we were just, yeah, burning away the past to start new beginnings. That sounds something like we would have done back then.
It does. It does.
It
Okay.
actually does.
All right. So we know that the spring equinox is on the 19th. We know that some people call it Ostara. And I know that there is a lot of controversy, kind of like with Mabon, over naming a holiday after a goddess.
Right.
And I've also heard, because this isn't celebrated in a lot of Celtic history. I mean, they celebrated the spring and things like that. A lot of cultures did, but it wasn't really a big day for the Celts. A lot of times the wheel of the year is pretty heavily Celtic.
What I think really it was is I think that they kind of more celebrated the actual equinox itself, which is, kind of like how you can say about Mabon, completely separate and apart. Like Mabon as a holiday is separate and apart from the autumn equinox, and Ostara is technically separate and apart from the spring equinox. I'm not saying they're two different things, but kinda. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, celebrating the astrological event of the spring equinox, I think is pretty important, even if it doesn't have its roots in
So I
far
do
history.
I do believe that the Celts celebrated the equinox, that portion of it, but maybe not so much the quote unquote Ostara portion of it.
The Ostara portion is definitely Germanic. She was a goddess from that area, and she would not have been
The
in.
Celtic lore.
Right. So, because the lore was a lot of word of mouth, there's not a lot of information. Some people think that Ostara is a very recent creation. However, she has been mentioned prior to the 1800s by a monk named Bede, Bede, so Bede or Bede. He transcribed some of the local folklore, and he did talk about the goddess Ostara, goddess of the spring, and that she was with a hare. And also the brothers Grimm, the fairy tale brothers.
Yep.
They also wrote down folklore, possibly from Bede, possibly from word of mouth, much like they got some of their other tales about Eostre or Ostara with her hare that laid eggs on the equinox. So it's been around for hundreds of years. And whether it goes further back than that, we can't be sure, again, because of the nature of folklore tales that go from, generation to generation and aren't written anywhere. So that doesn't change the fact that we can celebrate it because it is a day of equality, of harmony, of balance, day and night, light and dark, within you and without. You can use those energies in your magic. So whether you follow the Germanic folklore of the goddess Ostara or not, there is still magic in this day.
I want to put a challenge out there. Am I allowed to do that? Can I put a challenge out there to our
You
listeners?
can do whatever the fuck you want, Chelle. You're Chelle.
Okay. And you know me, I love to just do shit because I'm crazy. So I got a challenge for all of our listeners in the Northern Hemisphere for Ostara. Now, we always tell you about our socials. You can find us on Facebook, you can find us on Instagram. Hell, you can email us. We'll talk about all those addresses in a moment. But I want to know how many people out there do the thing where on the equinox, you try to get your broom to stand up on its own. You try to get the egg to stand on its end on its own. If you're doing this shit, I want pictures, okay? So you need to get me pictures of that. Send it to our socials because I'm curious if people like, do people actually do this on the equinox? I want to know.
I would like to know myself.
Send me your shit.
I'm going to be trying to stand a broom up, I can tell you that. I am absolutely loving broom lore. And Ostara is about sweeping away the old. What better time to break out your magical basome than Ostara, the equinox? Spring cleaning is spring cleaning for a reason. This has been around for a very long time. You open your windows to let in that first breath of spring air. Again, out with the old and in with the new. Sweep with your basome. Sweep out the old energies to make room for the new. Get rid of old clothes, old things. Again, get rid of the old to bring in the new. Follow that type of magic. If you are living a magical life, these are the things that you do to stay in rhythm with the seasons, to stay in rhythm with the cycles of the moon and of the seasons and of your life.
I swear to God, that's exactly why we use bast and fire in that damn thing. You just literally explained it. Anywho.
We must have had something going. So I have one.
Okay.
I have a quick one written down in my old digital book of shadows. So it goes like this. Awaken, awaken, Earth's rebirth. Ostara's light brings joy and mirth. As nature wakes from winter's sleep, new life emerges, roots run deep. Blessings bloom with the rising sun. Ostara's dance, new life begun.
Oh, I love that.
Isn't that nice? So we must have come up with that in Amarat back in the early 90s, but that's in my digital Amarat book of shadows.
I'm so glad you trusted that because I never did. Although now I'm regretting the pencil thing.
The pencil thing is scary. And the digital thing was scary too, because as much as we had that big, huge Amarat website back in the day, it was difficult to find, even on the Wayback Machine. So
Right.
I was glad I was able to recover some of that.
I did want to just mention, I always love the whole herb tea thing. I just wanted to mention some herbs that are associated with this that, if you're looking for like a spring tea or an incense to make, what have you, daffodils, daisies, honeysuckle, jasmine, dandelions. This is a good time. Have you ever had dandelion tea?
I have, and I've had dandelion wine and dandelion salad, and I love dandelions.
Do you know I've literally been making dandelion tea since I was freaking 4?
I believe it.
And I used to my mother used to tell me I was drinking poison because she thought if I drank the dandelions, I was going to get sick. So, of course, I did it to spite her. But this is kind of a good time I like to batch incense around this time of year. I don't know if it's because summer is kind of busy, vacations, kids, festival season, but this is kind of a good time to like batch make incense. Or, if you're talking tea, you can batch make tea because as long as you store it properly, it's good for like up to 2 years or so. But this is a good time to kind of batch some of that stuff because these things are sprouting, they're starting to grow. Depending on what ingredients you're using, it can be a good time to harvest them and then kind of batch them away.
Dandelions are great this time of year too, because if they start poking out, they're one of my first reliable signs of spring. They're so bright and sunny and beautiful, and they are so nutritious. And like Chelle said, you can use them to make tea. You can eat them in salads. You can cook them. You can make wine out of them. Somewhere I have
Flower crowns.
Flower crowns are the best for flower crowns. I have a dandelion wine recipe somewhere in the old Amarat digital book of shadows. I will try and dig out. You can also take the juice from the stems. If you break open that white sap that comes out of dandelions, you can use that as magical ink. Draw on your skin and it stains it light brown or light tan. And you can draw sigils or magical signs on your skin as part of a ritual or part of a spell. And so I just love dandelions. They are an amazing harbinger of spring.
I do have a little PSA about dandelions, though.
What's that?
Don't be plucking your dandelions for like the first couple of weeks. Let them kind of sit there for 2 or 3 weeks. Don't spray them or do whatever, because those first dandelions are legit the very first fresh food out there for the bees that are starting to come around. And gotta save the bees, damn it.
Yes. Oh, bees. Thank you, Chelle. You know, I love the bees. So, yes, definitely leave them for the bees for sure. Whenever you're harvesting anything, if you're a wild harvester, make sure you leave a bunch for the wildlife and so it can propagate itself. But yeah, writing on your skin, you know, once full summer comes along and you can pluck dandelions with impunity, that white sap is really fun to use for sigils on your skin in spellwork.
Absolutely. So I definitely think that this is a good time of year to start stuff. So, start those plans, get those things going. Let's do this, people.
So next week, we will be talking to you about things you can do during the spring equinox for Ostara, different spells and rituals that you can do, correspondences, just to make that day extra magical for you.
Have I found a recipe that I'm going to share with you guys?
Ooh.
Digging through this old book of shadows, I'm finding some freaking gems here. So I got something I'm going to share next week.
All right. Well, stay tuned next week to find maybe a dandelion wine recipe and whatever fun thing Chelle has dug out of her ginormous book of shadows.
Now, hold up, hold up, hold up. We cannot sign off here yet. We got a couple things we need to tend to. So, Layla, let's talk about how awesome and grateful we are for our sponsors.
My goodness. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We put the call out there for people to sponsor us on a monthly basis to help us a little bit defray some of the costs of putting on this show every week and to help us with our upcoming travels. And thank you. We really, really appreciate it.
We totally are so happy. You guys are awesome. And, the emails we're getting, the comments on Instagram and Facebook and the DMs, you guys are freaking awesome. And for all of you people who listen to us on your way to work, you know what? How bad is this day going to be? It's not that bad. It's not that bad. You can make it. You can get through this. You got this. So find us on our socials. Back on the Broomstick on Instagram, Back on the Broomstick on Facebook, Back on the Broomstick at gmail.com. Layla, what's our website?
Backonthebroomstick.com.
Send us your likes, subscribe. Oh, and oh my God, what did I just holy shit, almost forget. Where are we now? Where else can they find us?
On YouTube. You can find us on YouTube at Back on the Broomstick. Soon we will have video. Not yet, but soon.
We're getting there. We're getting there, folks. It's Ostara, new beginnings. Give us a minute. We're beginning.
And before I forget, as an extra special thank you, for everyone who has subscribed and anyone who wants to subscribe, you can find the information down in the show description.
Oh my God, I'm so excited about this.
For everyone that is subscribed as of the solar eclipse on April 8th, on the solar eclipse, we will draw one or maybe two names, depending on how many subscribers we get. We will draw one or two names for tarot readings from Chelle.
Oh my God, there's nothing more fun than doing tarot readings for listeners. So, folks, if you haven't subscribed yet, you got to do this because I'm super hyped and I want to pick you.
So in the description, we do have a link to support the show, and you can subscribe and support us either on a monthly basis or a one-time basis, but everything really helps out and we appreciate it. And we're going to show our appreciation by giving away one or maybe two tarot readings. Thank you all so much for listening to Back on the Broomstick. We will be back next week. So thank you, and give us those stars, the likes, subscribe.
And don't forget, keep it witchy.